Cheap Tickets wants to thank you for defending our country all over the world. Cheap Tickets wants to help you take a trip of your own. We believe the best trips in life are cheap. And as a proud supporter of the U.S. military, they want to offer you flights, hotels, car rentals, and even event tickets for less because you deserve it. Visit cheaptickets.com/military and take 18% off hotels. Offer is valid for active duty service members, veterans, military reserves, and the National Guard. Cheap Tickets thanks you for your service. cheaptickets.com/military. Now more than ever, you need reliable news you can count on. Since 1861, Stars and Stripes has been committed to bringing you the news without the spin. We believe in the First Amendment, and we're damn proud to have been there alongside you wherever you were deployed, keeping you connected. Today, we're only a click away. Go to stripes.com, use promo code podcast, and get 50% off your subscription. 50% off. There are some folks out there that think Stars and Stripes is a little old-fashioned. Well, folks, maybe right now, we need a little old-fashioned. Go to stripes.com and get reconnected with a legacy of news without the spin. Stripes.com. On December 1st, around 10 p.m., President Trump sent out 2 tweets about one subject. Section 230, which is a liability shielding gift from the U.S. to big tech, the only companies in America that have it, corporate welfare, is a serious threat to our national security and election integrity. Our country can never be safe and secure if we allow it to stand. Therefore, if the very dangerous and unfair Section 230 is not completely terminated as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, I will be forced to unequivocally veto the bill when sent to the very beautiful Resolute desk. Take back America now. Thank you. What does a 1996 communications law have to do with the National Defense Authorization Act? Should social media companies be regulated by the government? And were you part of the great migration to MeWe, Parler, or Rumble? Upvote, love, or thumbs down. I think we can all agree we hate the poke. This is Military Matters.
I answer to both, but Weinstein is the way I was raised. But it doesn't matter because they're both accurate.
That's Mark Weinstein, CEO and founder of the social networking site MeWe. If you're not familiar with MeWe, it's most comparable to Facebook in terms of how it's used. But Mark created MeWe with a very distinct vision of the role he thought social media should play in our lives.
Social networking was invented for us to stay connected to our family and our friends and common interests and to find new ideas and new thoughts for ourselves. It was not invented for what has become known as surveillance capitalism, where not only would our data be sold and let out to the world and to the Russians and to everybody else, but that also the mainstream social networks like Facebook would manipulate our news feeds, target us, manipulate our votes, manipulate our thoughts, manipulate our purchase decisions. That's not what social media was invented for. And I'm here with MeWe to fix the problem and set the record straight.
In the wake of this year's presidential elections, there was a lot of talk about the influence social media had on American voters. For many, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok and YouTube played crucial roles in the candidates' messages reaching voters. Those messages didn't always come directly from the campaigns themselves, but through individual users creating unique content, commenting, and sharing political content with others. But in that process, some users, particularly conservatives, began to feel like they were being censored, and in some cases, shut down, while politically liberal messages and influencers didn't seem to be experiencing the same level of censorship. When users started pointing out what they considered hypocrisy and censorship, Facebook and Twitter hit back saying that what they were doing was preventing the spread of misinformation.
Listen, Facebook uses that sort of as cover, as camouflage, if you will, for then censoring conservatives, right? Remember, what was it? A year and a half ago, they just wiped out, I forget, it was 500, 600,000 conservative groups. Did they go in and look at the content in those groups? No, they didn't. It's So that's just utter BS.
So, should social media companies carry any responsibility for what's being posted or promoted on their platforms? If they do, then they have to exercise a level of judgment about what is and isn't fact. That judgment is something Mark Weinstein doesn't think belongs in the hands of any social media company.
I'm supposed to be making sure that you're not inciting violence, you're not promoting hate, you're not bullying, that you're not posting copyright infringement or breaking the law, right? I'm not supposed to decide whether an aspirin is good for your heart or not. I'm not supposed to decide whose political point of view is the right point of view. That's absurd. And that's what they're doing under this camouflage of, curtailing misinformation. And they use that to block good people.
Many of those good people that Mark is talking about are veterans and service members. Facebook reports that of its 2.7 billion users, 4 million of them are veterans and active duty members. 12.5 million are family of a veteran or active duty member, and 242 million are friends with one or more veterans or active duty members. There's no available data on Reserve or National Guard, but you can imagine the numbers would rise in all categories. Tens to hundreds of millions of Americans that are either vets, service members, or connected in some way to one. Earlier this year, in August, Military Times, in partnership with Syracuse University's Institute for Veterans and Military Families, polled 1,018 active duty troops about who they would vote for between President Trump and Joe Biden. Biden received 41.3%, with President Trump not far behind, with 37.4% and 12.8% choosing a third party. To keep things simple, let's just say that about half of service members and veterans are Republican or right-leaning. Again, this is just to keep things simple to understand the gravity of these numbers. A good deal north of 100 million Facebook users could be feeling disenfranchised, potential migrants to a new social media platform. In the weeks shortly after the election, social media sites such as MeWe, Parler, and Rumble saw an influx of thousands and thousands of new members. These sites promised their new members a new way to social, one that wouldn't censor, sell their personal data, and would allow its users to express their political beliefs free from corporate judgment.
If we eliminate advertising targeting newsfeed manipulation, then we prevent anybody from promoting anything to the broader MeWe community, so there's no way to propagate and spread untruths on a large scale. It can't happen on MeWe. So if you're on MeWe and you choose to follow a conversation about whether an aspirin is good for your heart or not good for your heart, why am I supposed to be the medical doctor? No, I'm not.
The other major new social media platform that I've mentioned several times now is Parler. If MeWe is the alternative to Facebook, Parler is closer to a Twitter alternative, but with a light sprinkling of Reddit. We reached out to Parler several times, but received no reply. Parler describes itself as, quote, the solution to problems that have surfaced in recent years due to changes in big tech policy influenced by various special interest groups. Parler is built upon a foundation of respect for privacy and personal data, free speech, free markets, and ethical, transparent corporate policy, end quote. Unfortunately, some of Parler's new users have been testing the limits of its promised free speech policy, posting racist, violent, and sometimes outrageous things. Now, there aren't numbers to this claim. It's all anecdotal, so you'll hear everything from these are rare, isolated incidents to it's a widespread problem across the platform. What we do know for a fact is that Parler recently brought on a lot more content moderators, and they themselves have described situations of, quote, attacks from individuals who wish to see us fail, end quote.
Racism, unfortunately, and bigotry is on every platform.
That's Eric Mitchell.
I am the co-founder and chairman of the board for LifeLit Media. We are a media and talent management company.
Eric works with several big brand companies and several small veteran-owned businesses, helping them market and promote across both traditional and social media. He's also seen the migration of vets and service members to new social media platforms, but also veteran-owned businesses who see these new platforms as a place to get a little edgier, to say things that get them closer to new sales. And this has him concerned.
And they can go there because then they're unregulated. They can say whatever they want. And you see a lot of folks who are big brands that are in the vet space that are there because they can say whatever they want. They could be that very fine line of, it wouldn't pass on Facebook because there are decency rules and you can't use certain words or make verbal threats to somebody.
I always say, you always hear me say, MeWe's for good people. I mean, if you're a hater, if you're saying go kill this group or that group, or all these people should be killed or, maimed or whatever, you're out. We throw people off the platform every day. But again, if your political point of view is different than mine, who cares? Isn't that democracy at work?
When we return from the break, what kind of say do you really have if you're not paying for the platform? Can MeWe and Parler really stand up to Facebook and Twitter? And we talk with Vincent Rocco Vargas, former Army Ranger and now actor in the hit television show Mayans MC. We talk about why he is now straddling the line between big social media and new social when we return. Cheap Tickets wants to thank you for defending our country all over the world. Cheap Tickets wants to help you take a trip of your own. We believe the best trips in life are cheap. And as a proud supporter of the U.S. military, they want to offer you flights, hotels, car rentals, and even event tickets for less because you deserve it. Visit cheaptickets.com/military and take 18% off hotels. Offer is valid for active duty service members, veterans, military reserves, and the National Guard. Cheap Tickets thanks you for your service. cheaptickets.com/military. Now more than ever, you need reliable news you can count on. Since 1861, Stars and Stripes has been committed to bringing you the news without the spin. We believe in the First Amendment, and we're damn proud to have been there alongside you wherever you were deployed, keeping you connected. Today, we're only a click away. Go to stripes.com, use promo code podcast, and get 50% off your subscription. 50% off. There are some folks out there that think Stars and Stripes is a little old-fashioned. Well, folks, maybe right now, we need a little old-fashioned. Go to stripes.com and get reconnected with a legacy of news without the spin. Stripes.com.
Business in the past 10 years has been revolutionized by social media. Establishing your brand on social media, it's free marketing in a sense, in line of sight of the people, and as well as finding your community that would resonate with your brand.
That's Vincent Rocco Vargas. You might know him from his days as part of the Ranger Up and Article 15 crew alongside Matt Bess, Ross Patterson, and Jared Taylor. These days, Rocco has found himself somewhat reinvented, focusing on a serious acting career with a role in television's Mayans MC, a family movie called Lucy Shimmers and the Prince of Peace, and a burgeoning music career. For someone so immersed in media, social media plays a very important role.
You are also a marketing power for the show, the movie, or whatever it is that you'll be doing. And so social media is huge in my world. And also I try not to allow it to take over, but at some times it is a very important resume, like a digital resume of who I am and what I'm about.
Recently, Rocco made the move into Parler and MeWe after experiencing firsthand the kind of censorship many other social media migrants have complained about.
So I go download Amcon West on Discord.
Discord is a social media platform very popular in the gaming and streaming world.
And the next day, my profile is banned from Discord for violating the policies of Discord and posing threats on other people in the community. Now, understand that page, there was no commenting. It was a post. They just posted and you just saw the information. So there was no ability, and you had to get invited by another individual that knew who you were, right? So somehow, some way, it got reported and everyone was banned.
Rocco, like many others, saw the movement of the veteran and service member population to alternative social media platforms and decided that he too would join the move.
This is definitely how I make my money, This is definitely how I've made a position. And this is how I've put myself in front of veterans to speak positivity for our community. And the veteran community, if they're getting censored on Facebook, well, then I have to jump ship and join my veteran community wherever else they go.
I pressed Rocco on the term jump ship because one doesn't really jump back into a sinking ship. But like many others, Rocco kept his accounts open on Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever fully walk away unless, I guess it's kind of like Overwatch, man. I'm watching the zone. I hope that my parlor gets so active and has full engagement and has a massive following that becomes my focus. I think it's kind of like whatever one gets the most attention is working for me is the one that I work for.
Everybody's still there. Billions of people still use Facebook every day. Everyday users.
Eric Mitchell, LifeFlip Media.
There are some people who are exclusive Twitter users. I mean, I love Twitter. And then you have people who depend on LinkedIn. I don't even consider LinkedIn top 3 because Instagram always will own that. And I'm pretty sure Snap and TikTok are also have, and if you bring in the kids, the younger, the Gen Zs and the millennials, they're going to own that space. What Facebook and Twitter have taken years to do is build ad revenue, drive sponsors to them because they're open and they do have this amazing, because they are, number one, a free platform. And that's what I think you need to drive home on everything that you tell people. Again, you're using a free platform. If you don't like the rules of one platform, you either play by their rules, which is free, or you go somewhere else.
Very few people shuttered their Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube and completely moved over to these new platforms. There are a lot of folks like Rocco who simply opened new accounts and are surveying these new social media spots to see if they're going to be the new focus of attention. But Eric Mitchell points out that these new platforms on the block have a lot of catching up to do. Social media isn't just about creating the platform. It's about scaling that platform through revenue and lessons learned by Facebook and Twitter for over a decade. It's a steep curve to learn, no matter what the industry.
For someone like me who's a social media also influencer, right? Who makes money off of posting, who can, who uses targeted ads, who wants to make sales of items by generating, paid ads. You kind of need the most eyes, right? Algorithms and that. And so it will be really hard for people to jump. I heard parlors now, people are starting to make money off Parlor. I think if I'm correct, that's interesting. I'm curious to see how that works. So when you start getting to that position, well, then you start making it a business and people can be lucrative off it. I think it makes it a lot easier for people to jump ship.
But what about that final point Eric made?
If you don't like the rules of one platform, you either play by their rules, which is free, or you go somewhere else.
This argument for allowing social media companies to do whatever they want stems from the fact that they are private companies providing a service in exchange for your privacy and personal information. They don't exactly hide their practices either. They just put it in their user agreement that we choose not to read.
In the end of the day, if someone makes a better Facebook and we jump on board and that doesn't influence, then I think you'll see a lot of people jump to it. And I think that's kind of happening now.
We opened the show with a tweet from President Trump saying that he will veto the National Defense Authorization Act if Section 230 isn't repealed. The National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, is essentially the annual budget and expenditure for the Department of Defense. The NDAA is contested every year and is the focus of many debates, usually about its cost and provisions. But the president is making this about something unrelated to the DoD or its budget. It's now about Section 230. But what is Section 230? It's part of the 1996 Communications Decency Act, which shields large social media companies like Facebook and Twitter from lawsuits over the content their users post on those platforms. It further provides a Good Samaritan protection from civil liabilities for companies when they remove or moderate third-party material they deem obscene, lewd, lascivious, filthy, excessively violent, harassing, or otherwise objectionable, as long as it is done in good faith. There is the problem. Some folks feel like if a social media company's CEO is a Democrat, they might view your Republican-leaning posts as offensive and therefore remove or moderate your account. And they can do so legally because they are protected by Section 230. But on the other hand, suppose you're tweeting out something that is completely false about a political opponent, something that can be fact-checked, and the social media platform takes that post down or flags it for containing false information. The social media company can do this because they are acting in good faith. The approval of the NDAA seems to now hinge on whether the government will repeal Section 230, removing the current federal protections. Let's go back to May 28th of this year when President Trump provided the executive order on preventing online censorship. What this executive order did was outline the president's grievances with social media tech companies and orders the Department of Commerce to petition the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, to clarify regulations which essentially would limit and bring into question the validity of Section 230 and the immunity provided to social media companies. In the executive order, it states, quote, "It is the policy of the United States that the scope of that immunity should be clarified. The immunity should not extend beyond its text and purpose to provide protection for those who purport to provide users a forum for free and open speech, but in reality, use their power over a vital means of communication to engage in deceptive or pretextual actions stifling free and open debate by censoring certain viewpoints." It goes on to also read, "When an interactive computer service provider removes or restricts access to content and its actions do not meet the criteria of subparagraph C2A, it is engaged in editorial conduct. It is the policy of the United States that such a provider should properly lose the limited liability shield of subparagraph C2A and be exposed to liability like any traditional editor and publisher that is not an online provider." End quote.
When the government looks at regulating Section 230, which means that social media companies would have liability for what's posted on their sites, that's a massive mistake, and I'll tell you why.
MeWe CEO Mark Weinstein.
That plays straight into Facebook's hands, because Facebook can afford to hire all the moderators in the world and preserve their surveillance capitalist business model. But Section 230 is there so that startup companies can start and use the free market and compete. But if a startup company now has to adhere to a different regulation where they have massive liability if somebody says something wrong on their platform, that's going to destroy the free market. It's going to kill the entrepreneurial incentive, and it's going to make, institutionalize Facebook for the long term, which is exactly what nobody wants. So we have to be careful about even the best intentions of the government, where their intentions are good, to try and fix the problem. The free market must fix this problem.
I think the government needs to leave it alone. Government has other things to worry about than what we're doing on a free platform.
Eric Mitchell, LifeFlip Media.
It's a delicate line. Everybody has to remember, on whatever side you are, and we do have the Constitution that protects us, and our freedom of speech. I know what people think other amendments and other things are important, but to me, freedom of speech is one of the most important things that we have in our country after going to countries that don't have the right. Being able to say what we want to a point is beautiful. Having a platform where we can communicate with our friends and family, especially during a pandemic, is important.
What became scary is that the only information that we were allowed to see is what that social media, I guess, ideologies believed in. And that is a scary thing, because you have very ignorant people who don't make the effort to learn both sides of an argument, who take face value as fact, and they read a headline and they share it because they think that's true, and they believe everything they read is true. It became this misinformation tidal wave that we still to this day have, right? And so, yeah, it's very scary when social media can control the dialogue. I think there needs to be something that's changed on that.
In President Trump's executive order, he essentially called social media, quote, "the critical means of promoting the free flow of speech and ideas today," end quote. It's certainly a means, but perhaps it shouldn't be the critical one. Section 230 of the 1996 CDA was written in 1996. consider for a moment that AOL.com was the most popular site that year. Most folks don't even remember what AOL stands for, much less that the internet used to be sent to our houses on a disk with 200 free hours. No one could have foreseen the rise of Facebook or Twitter. I think both sides of the aisle can agree that these tech giants have engaged in unethical practices with our data alone. Have they engaged in political manipulation? Well, I don't think it's that far-fetched of an idea, considering that at the end of the day, it's a person making decisions about what they like and don't like and what they're offended by. Facts aren't always clear. They can even change with time. So social media, it seems, does need an overhaul, but to what degree? That's really the question here. I myself have a MeWe account and a Parler, but I will admit that my time and focus remains with Facebook and Twitter because that's still where my friends, family, and most of you, our listeners, still reside. Like Rocco, I'm watching the landscape, and honestly, it's not that pretty. Everyone seems to have an agenda, and whenever I learn something I think sounds true, there's someone telling me that it's not. And then someone tells me that the new idea that I have, well, that's wrong too. It's enough to drive anyone crazy and hate all of it. The problem is, where do you go? I know a lot of folks think the grass is greener in MeWe and Parler. But is it? And if it is, will it continue to be? Should social media be critical or essential? I don't know. But what I do know is this. Despite having Facebook, Twitter, MeWe, Parler, Instagram, and YouTube, I will not be on TikTok. You're welcome. I'm Rod Rodriguez. This was Military Matters. I want to thank our guest, CEO of MeWe, Mark Weinstein, co-founder of LifeLit Media, Eric Mitchell, and Vincent, Rocco Vargas. All their links are in the show notes. This episode was written and produced by Rod Rodriguez, executive produced by Joe Fleming. Be sure to visit us at stripes.com. Use promo code podcast to save 50% on your digital subscription. That's promo code podcast to save 50% on your digital subscription at stripes.com. This episode was also sponsored by Cheap Tickets. Go to cheaptickets.com/military and get 18% off hotels. Offer valid for active duty service members, veterans, military, reserves, and the National Guard. The best trips in life are cheap. cheaptickets.com/military. I'm Rod Rodriguez, and I will see you at the next episode.